James Garfield was the 20th President of the United States, serving from March 4, 1881, until his death on September 19, 1881. He was assassinated just 4 months into his presidency. Before taking the role of president, James Garfield repeatedly won re-election in the House for 18 years and served as the leading Republican. He played a role in the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1875, which advanced the rights of African Americans to have equal access to education and employment opportunities. On July 2, 1881, as President Garfield was preparing to board a train to attend a speech in New York, he was shot by Charles J. Guiteau. He later died on September 18 of that same year. The assassination of President Garfield was a tragedy that shocked the nation and led to increased public awareness about the importance of protecting the president and other public figures. It also highlighted the problem of political violence and the need for greater security measures to prevent such attacks from occurring in the future. Chester A. Arthur served as the 21st President of the United States from 1881 to 1885, following the assassination of President James A. Garfield. President Arthur signed the Pendleton Civil Reform Act, also known as the Pendleton Act, in 1883. This act established a merit-based system for hiring and promoting government employees, replacing the previous spoils system in which political supporters were rewarded with government jobs. The Pendleton Act created the Civil Service Commission, which was responsible for administering civil service exams to applicants for federal government jobs. It prohibited federal officials from firing or demoting employees for political reasons and established rules for the appointment and promotion of federal employees. This act helped to reduce corruption and increase the professionalism and efficiency of the federal government. Political connections were no longer a valid option to receive a federal position. The Edmunds Act was a United States federal law that was signed into law in 1882. The act made it a federal crime to engage in polygamy or to cohabit with more than one spouse. The act was part of a larger effort by the federal government to suppress polygamy in the United States, which was practiced by some members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as the Mormon Church. Polygamy was seen as a threat to traditional family values and was viewed as a form of social and moral degeneracy. The Edmunds Act was controversial and was opposed by many Mormons, who argued that it violated their freedom of religion. However, it was eventually upheld by the Supreme Court, and it played a significant role in the eventual end of polygamy in the United States. Some foreign policies that President Arthur initiated included expanding the U.S. Navy. He believed that a strong navy was essential to protect American interests abroad and to defend the country's coastlines. President Arthur also worked to promote trade with foreign countries and to expand American businesses into new markets. He did this by negotiating trade agreements and reducing tariffs. President Arthur signed the Chinese Exclusion Act in 1882. This act suspended Chinese immigration to the United States for 10 years and made it difficult for Chinese people already living in the country to become citizens. The act was driven by a widespread belief that Chinese immigrants were taking jobs away from Americans and that they were a threat to the country's economic and social stability. It was also fueled by racist attitudes towards Chinese people, who were often subject to discrimination and violence. The act is now widely viewed as a mistake and a stain on American history and is remembered as an example of the country's history of xenophobia and discrimination against immigrants. President Arthur's decision to sign the act into law has been subjected to criticism as it has been cited as an example of the negative consequences of overly restrictive immigration policies. In general, President Arthur is remembered for his efforts to reform civil and social policies. There is, however, a blip in his reputation due to his handling of Chinese immigrants.